I didn't raise my voice. I didn't slam the table. I didn't even let my expression change when my stepdaughter Emma looked me straight in the eye at her engagement party and said, "You've paid for everything else. Richard, what's another 80,000? It's not like you worked hard for the money anyway." I just nodded slowly, took a sip of my champagne, and said, "Let me think about it." That was 3 weeks ago. Tonight I'm sitting in my study with paperwork spread across my desk, and Emma has no idea what's coming. My name is Richard Matthews. I'm 62 years old, and I've been a college professor for 37 years. Literature, if you're wondering. I've published 4 books, mentored hundreds of students, and yes, I worked very hard for every dollar I've earned. But apparently, standing in front of a classroom doesn't count as real work to a 28-year-old influencer who's never held a job longer than 6 months. I met Karen when Emma was 12. Sweet kid back then, or so I thought. Shy, quiet, loved reading. Her father had left when she was 8, and Karen was doing her best as a single mom on an administrative assistant's salary. When we got married 2 years later, I knew I was taking on a responsibility. I didn't mind. I wanted to help. Emma started college at 18. NYU. Expensive, but she was passionate about communications and media. I told her I'd handle it: tuition, room and board, spending money. Karen worked part-time by then, and her income barely covered groceries. I was the breadwinner, and I wore that responsibility with pride. 4 years of undergrad. Then she decided she needed a master's degree. "Everyone in my field has one, Richard," she said. "I won't be competitive without it." Another 2 years, another $100,000. But she was family, and I believed in investing in education. Somewhere around year 5, I started noticing things. Emma's Instagram showed a lifestyle that didn't match struggling grad student designer handbags, weekend trips to Miami, dinners at restaurants I couldn't afford even with my salary. When I asked about it, she'd say friends were treating her, or she'd gotten deals, or she was networking. Karen would shush me. "She's building her brand, Richard. That's how influencers work. You don't understand social media." I didn't push it. I was the stepdad, not the real father. I'd learned early that questioning Emma too hard meant sulking, tears, and Karen defensive. It was easier to just keep paying. After graduation last year, Emma moved back home. Temporarily, she said, just until she got on her feet. She had influencer income, she claimed, but needed to save up for her own place. I said, "Fine. I've got a home office, but I carved out space." This was still my stepdaughter, still family. Months passed. She didn't move out. The influencer income seemed sporadic at best. I'd see her spending hours staging photos, recording TikToks, editing content, but the actual paying opportunities were rare. Karen kept defending her. "She's building something, Richard. These things take time." Meanwhile, I was still covering her phone bill, car insurance, health insurance since she aged out of student coverage. Small things, but they added up. I'd sit at my desk grading papers at 10 p.m., tired from a full day of teaching, and I'd hear Emma in her room recording another video. "Hey guys, today I'm going to show you my skincare routine with these amazing products." Products I'd probably paid for indirectly. Then 6 months ago, she started dating Travis, 29, works in cryptocurrency trading, drives a Tesla, wears expensive watches, talks loudly about disrupting traditional finance. I didn't like him immediately, but I kept quiet. Not my place to judge who Emma dates. They got engaged 4 months later. Quick, but they're adults. I congratulated them, shook Travis's hand, smiled for the photos Karen immediately posted on Facebook. The engagement party was 2 weeks after that. Travis's parents hosted it at their country club. Open bar, catered food, ice sculptures, the works. I felt out of place in my department store suit, surrounded by tech money and old wealth. But I showed up because that's what you do. That's where Emma cornered me by the champagne fountain. She was glowing, showing off her ring to anyone within eyeshot. 3 carats, platinum setting. Travis's parents had paid for it, she told me earlier. "Richard, I need to talk to you about something important," she said, pulling me aside. Karen saw us and drifted over, sensing whatever was coming. "We've been pricing out the wedding," Emma continued. "Travis's parents are covering the venue and catering, but there's so much more. The photographer we want is $15,000. My dress is $8. Flowers are $12. The videographer, the DJ, the favors, the rehearsal dinner." She waved her hand. "It adds up so fast." I nodded. I'm sure it does. Big weddings are expensive. So we need 80,000 to cover our portion, she said. Just like that. Matter of fact. Like asking me to pass the salt. Travis's parents are putting in 100, so we figured you and Mom could match or get close. I felt Karen tense beside me. We'd never discussed this. She made maybe 30,000 a year now, working part-time. She had nothing saved. Emma, that's a significant amount, I started carefully. You've paid for everything else, she interrupted. 4 years at NYU, 2 years of grad school, 6 years of living at home. What's another 80,000 really? She laughed, but there was an edge to it. It's not like you work that hard for the money anyway. You stand in front of a classroom and talk about books. How hard can that be? The champagne in my hand suddenly tasted like bile. Karen jumped in. Emma, that's not... What? It's true, Emma said. No offense, Richard, but let's be real. You've got summers off, tenure, a pension. You're basically coasting. Travis works 80-hour weeks. His job is actually stressful. Yours is just comfortable. I looked at this woman I'd helped raise for 16 years. This woman whose education I'd funded to the tune of, I did quick math in my head, probably $250,000 when you counted everything. Who'd lived rent-free in my home for the last year. Whose insurance I still paid. Let me think about it, I said quietly. Emma brightened. Really? Oh my God, Richard, thank you. I knew you'd come through. You always do. She hugged me quickly and bounced off to tell her friends. Karen touched my arm. We can figure something out, she whispered. Maybe take out a loan, or... I said I'll think about it, I repeated, and walked away before she could see my hands shaking. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing Emma's voice. It's not like you worked hard for the money. I thought about my PhD program, the years of adjunct poverty, the countless evenings grading essays, the summer classes I taught for extra income, the academic books nobody reads that I wrote anyway because that's what gets you tenure. I got up at 3 a.m. and went to my study. I started pulling files, student loan statements from when I was young, before I'd paid them off. Tax returns from the lean years, bank statements showing every tuition payment, every rent check, every wire transfer to Emma's account for emergencies that came up. I made a spreadsheet. Date, amount, purpose. It took me 4 hours. The total came to $273,412. I'd spent more than $250,000 on someone who thought I hadn't worked hard for it. I sat back in my chair as the sun came up and thought about what Karen had said. Take out a loan, at 62, for someone else's wedding, for a woman who just told me my career was a joke. That's when it clicked. The quiet rage that had been building transformed into something else. Clarity. Cold, clear, decisive clarity. I spent the next week doing research. I met with my financial advisor. I called my lawyer buddy from the university, Dan, who handled estate planning and contracts. I explained what I wanted. Are you sure about this, Richard? Dan asked. This is, well, it's legally sound, but it's going to cause a family explosion. I'm sure, I said. Draft it up. 2 days later, I had the document. I read it 3 times, made minor edits, and approved the final version. Then I called Emma. I've thought about your request, I told her. I'm willing to help with the wedding expenses. I could hear the squeal through the phone. Oh my God, Richard. I knew. But I need you and Karen to come to my office this Saturday, I interrupted. I want to go over the details, make it official. Paperwork, you understand. Paperwork? She sounded confused. I'm putting up a significant amount of money. I just want to make sure everything's documented properly, for tax purposes. That wasn't true, but it sounded plausible. Oh. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. What time? We settled on 2 p.m. I chose Saturday because the building would be quiet, just security. No students, no faculty, nobody to witness what was about to happen. Karen called me that night. Emma's so excited, she said. Thank you for doing this, Richard. I know it's a lot. We'll talk on Saturday, I said. About that, do we really need the meeting? Couldn't you just transfer the money? I'd prefer to do it properly, I said. See you Saturday. I spent the next few days teaching my classes like normal. My students probably thought I was distracted. One of my seniors asked if I was feeling okay. Just thinking about a decision I need to make, I told her. Sometimes the right choice is the hardest one. Saturday arrived. I got to my office at 1:30, carrying my leather folder. Dan had dropped off the documents the day before. I laid them out on my desk, along with 3 pens and a calculator. Emma and Karen arrived at 2 sharp. Emma was already talking about the wedding as they walked in. So I showed Travis the venue photos, and he thinks we should upgrade to the platinum package, which is actually better value because I let her talk. I gestured for them to sit in the chairs across from my desk. Old habits. I'd sat in this same position for thousands of meetings with students over the years. Office hours, academic warnings, grade appeals. This felt oddly similar. So, I said when Emma finally paused, let's talk about the wedding funding. Right. Emma pulled out her phone. I have a whole breakdown of costs, the photographer alone. I've prepared a document, I said, sliding the folder across the desk. I think this addresses everything fairly. Emma opened it, Karen leaning over to look. I watched their faces as they read the first page. This is a loan agreement, Karen said slowly. That's correct, I said. Emma looked up. What? No, we asked for help with the wedding, not a loan. And I'm willing to help, I said calmly, by lending you $80,000 at 0% interest. Very generous terms, actually. Much better than any bank would offer. But why does this need to be a loan? Emma's voice was rising. You paid for my school. You didn't make that alone. Your education was a gift, I said. A gift I was happy to give when I believed you valued it and understood the work it took to provide it. The temperature in the room dropped about 20 degrees. What's that supposed to mean? Emma demanded. I picked up the second document, the spreadsheet. This is a complete accounting of every dollar I've spent on you since I married your mother. It totals $273,412. Karen's face went pale. Richard, I'm not asking for that money back, I continued. That was freely given. But your comments at your engagement party made me reconsider how I approach financial support going forward. My comments? Emma looked genuinely confused. What did I say? You said, and I quote, it's not like you worked hard for the money anyway. You dismissed 37 years of my career as basically worthless. I didn't mean, you also said, what's another 80,000? As if it were pocket change. As if I hadn't already invested nearly $300,000 in your future. My voice was still quiet, but Emma flinched anyway. That's not fair, she said. You're twisting my words. Am I? I picked up another document. I also have documentation of the emergencies you claimed over the past 6 years. $5,000 for a laptop that apparently broke. I found it working fine in your room last week. $3,000 for textbooks you never bought. I checked with the campus bookstore. $1,200 for a medical bill that your insurance actually covered. Should I continue? Karen made a small sound. Emma, did you? It wasn't like that, Emma said quickly. Those were just, I needed the money for other things, and I knew you wouldn't give it if I told the truth. So you lied, I said flatly. I didn't lie, you have the money, Richard. What difference does it make what I spent it on? And there it was. The entitlement laid bare, no pretense anymore. It makes a difference to me, I said. Which brings us back to this. I tapped the loan agreement. If you want $80,000 for your wedding, you'll sign this. The terms are simple. 0 interest, payments of $1,000 per month starting 6 months after the wedding date. That gives you time to settle into married life. The full amount will be paid back over approximately 7 years. $1,000 a month? Emma looked horrified. I can't afford that. Travis works in crypto trading. Surely he makes enough to cover it. That's his money, not mine. So get a job, I said simply. You have a master's degree in communications that cost me $140,000. Use it. I have a job. I'm an influencer. How much did you make from that last month? She went silent. The month before? Nothing. Emma, you're 28 years old, I said. You're about to be married. It's time to start contributing financially instead of expecting others to fund your lifestyle. I can't believe you're doing this, she said, and I could see tears forming. The same tears that had worked on me for years. After everything we've been to each other, I thought you loved me. I do love you, I said, which is exactly why I'm doing this. Because apparently, giving you everything you asked for taught you that money appears magically with no effort. And that's my fault. I enabled this. Karen spoke up. Richard, maybe we could compromise. Half as a gift, half as a loan? No, I said. I'm done with gifts. Sign the agreement, or I'm not contributing anything. Emma stood up abruptly. Fine, then don't. Travis and I will figure it out ourselves. We don't need your money. All right, I said calmly. She clearly expected me to cave. When I didn't, she grabbed her purse. Come on, Mom, we're leaving. Karen stood but hesitated. Emma, maybe we should think about this. Think about what? How my stepfather is abandoning me right before my wedding? How he's putting money before family? Emma was working herself into a full meltdown. You know what? I'm glad this happened. Now I know where I really stand. You were never my real father anyway. I know, I said quietly. You made that very clear at your party. She stormed out. Karen lingered at the door. Richard, please. She didn't mean any of it. She's just stressed about the wedding. Karen? She lied to me repeatedly about money. She dismissed my entire career as worthless, and she expected me to hand over $80,000 with no accountability. I looked at my wife of 16 years. You've been covering for her this whole time, haven't you? The emergencies, the spending, all of it. She couldn't meet my eyes. She's my daughter. And that makes it okay to lie to me? To let her use me as an ATM while mocking me behind my back? She's young. She doesn't understand. She's 28, Karen. When does she start understanding? 30? 40? Or will she always be too young to be held accountable as long as someone else is paying? Karen's eyes filled with tears. I thought you'd understand. I thought family means respect, I said. Mutual respect. I don't see that here. She left without another word. I sat alone in my office for a long time after they were gone. The unsigned loan agreement sat on my desk, along with a spreadsheet that detailed 16 years of financial support. I thought about all the times I'd said yes when I should have said no. All the times I'd written a check instead of having a difficult conversation. My phone buzzed. A text from Emma. Hope you're happy. You just ruined my wedding. I turned the phone off. The next 2 weeks were silent. Karen was staying at her sister's place. She told me via email. She needed time to think. Emma had blocked me on all social media. I taught my classes, graded papers, and came home to an empty house. Then I got a call from Travis's mother, Barbara. I'd met her briefly at the engagement party, perfectly polite, perfectly composed old money. Professor Matthews, I hope you don't mind my calling directly, she said. Emma gave me your number. Not at all, I said, curious. I wanted to discuss the wedding funding situation, she continued. Emma explained that there was a misunderstanding. I wouldn't call it a misunderstanding. Yes, well. She paused delicately. The thing is, Professor, my husband and I have always taught Travis about financial responsibility. We paid for his education, but we also made sure he understood the value of work. He's been employed since he was 16. I stayed quiet, waiting. Emma mentioned that you offered a loan for the wedding expenses, Barbara continued. I think that's very reasonable. Does Emma think so? Emma is. Adjusting her expectations, Barbara said carefully. Between you and me, Professor Matthews, I had concerns about this match from the beginning, not because of Emma herself, but because it was clear she'd never learned certain life skills. Financial planning, budgeting, the relationship between work and compensation. I see. Travis and I had a long conversation last week, she said. He's been covering some of Emma's expenses since they got engaged. Dinners, shopping trips, a weekend in Napa. He finally asked her about her influencer income. I could imagine how that conversation went. She admitted it's negligible, Barbara continued. A few $100s a month at best. Travis was shocked. He'd assumed, based on her lifestyle, that she was making significantly more. Her lifestyle was funded by me, I said, and apparently now by him. Exactly. Which is why I'm calling. My husband and I would like to offer you our support. We're reducing our wedding contribution to $50,000, still generous, but not excessive. We've told Emma and Travis that if they want the wedding they're planning, they need to fund the difference themselves. I felt the ghost of a smile. How did that go over? Emma suggested they elope to Vegas. Travis suggested they have a smaller wedding and use the savings for a house down payment. They're currently not speaking. She sounded almost amused. But Professor Matthews, I wanted you to know that you're not alone in this. Some of us believe in teaching responsibility, even when it's uncomfortable. Thank you, Barbara. That means more than you know. After we hung up, I sat with that conversation. Travis's parents were cutting funding. Emma was facing actual consequences for the first time in years. And I'd held firm, Karen came home 3 days later. I was in the study when I heard the door. She appeared in the doorway, looking tired. "Can we talk?" she asked. Of course. She sat down in the chair Emma had occupied 2 weeks ago. "I've been staying with Janet," she said. "She helped me see some things clearly." I waited. "She asked me how much I'd contributed to Emma's expenses over the years," Karen continued. "I told her I couldn't, really. My income barely covered my own costs, so she asked who paid. And I realized it was always you. Everything. For 16 years. I didn't mind supporting. Let me finish," she said. "Janet asked me if I'd ever told Emma no. If I'd ever made her get a job, pay her own way, face consequences. And I realized I hadn't, because it was easier to ask you for money than to deal with her tantrums." I stayed silent. "I enabled her," Karen said quietly. "I taught her that tears and manipulation work, that there's always someone to bail her out, and I let her disrespect you because it was easier than confronting her." Tears spilled over. "I'm so sorry, Richard." "What changed?" I asked. "Emma called me yesterday. She wanted me to convince you to just give her the money. No loan, no strings. She said you owed it to her after all these years." Karen shook her head, and I realized she still doesn't get it. She still thinks she's entitled to your money just because it exists. "What did you tell her?" "I told her she needed to sign your loan agreement or figure it out herself." She hung up on me. Karen wiped her eyes. "I don't know if she'll ever speak to me again." "She will," I said. "When she needs something." Karen flinched, but nodded. "You're right, and I need to learn to say no when that happens." We sat in silence for a moment. "Are we going to be okay?" she asked finally. "I don't know," I said honestly. "You chose to protect her over being honest with me. That's hard to come back from." "I know, but I want to try, if you'll let me." I looked at this woman I'd been married to for 16 years. I thought about the good times, the life we'd built, the partnership we'd had before Emma became the center of everything. "We'd need counseling," I said. "Real, honest counseling, and you'd need to maintain boundaries with Emma, even when it's hard." "I will," she said. "I promise." "We'll see," I said. "The wedding is in 4 months. I haven't heard from Emma directly, but Karen tells me they've scaled way back. Simple ceremony at a local venue, 50 guests instead of 200. Travis's parents are covering their reduced contribution. Emma and Travis are paying for the rest. Emma got a job 3 weeks ago. Junior social media coordinator at a marketing firm, entry-level pay. But it's a start. Karen heard through Travis that Emma cried when she got her first paycheck and saw the taxes taken out. "I'm still waiting for an apology, a real one, not one driven by needing something. I'm not holding my breath." Last week, I updated my will. The house, my pension, my savings. It's all going to establish a scholarship fund at the university for first-generation college students. Kids who actually understand the value of education because they've seen their parents sacrifice for it. Karen knows. She didn't argue. I'm teaching my regular course load this semester. Introduction to American Literature, my favorite. Last Tuesday, a student came to office hours struggling with an essay. She was working 2 jobs to pay tuition, exhausted, falling behind. "I don't know if I can keep doing this," she told me. I thought about Emma, about 16 years of funding someone who thought it came easy. "It's hard work," I told my student. "Real, genuine, exhausting work. And anyone who tells you different has never done it." I pulled up the scholarship fund application on my computer. "But let me show you something that might help." She left my office with hope in her eyes and a path forward that didn't involve family guilt or manipulation. Just honest work, honest support, and mutual respect. I don't know if Emma will ever understand what she lost when she dismissed my career as worthless. But I know I'm finally at peace with my decision. I didn't shout. I didn't argue. I just set a boundary and held it. And that, I've learned at 62 years old, is sometimes the hardest and most important work of all.